Open your Bible to that familiar instruction. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything bring your definite requests to God with thanksgiving, and then the peace of God will guard your heart and mind. Now notice the order. Refuse anxious meditation. Make the request. Give thanks. Receive peace. A parent can speak the right scriptures and still pray from a vivid picture of everything going wrong. The mouth says God is watching over my child, but the mind is showing an accident, a terrible decision, the wrong crowd, the worst report. The prayer may sound spiritual, but beneath that prayer, another prayer is being offered, a prayer of fear, repeated in the imagination. You see, worry is meditation too. It is meditation on the wrong picture. Suppose you carry a heavy suitcase into a room and say, "Here, take this for me." Then you walk out still dragging it behind you because it is chained to your wrist. Well, you entered the room with the suitcase, you talked about the suitcase, and you asked somebody to take it, but you never released it. Many parents do that in prayer. They tell God every detail, ask Him to care for the child, say amen, and then spend the next hour mentally rehearsing disaster. They prayed, but they did not let the prayer settle anything. Don't misunderstand me. Peace does not mean you stop caring. Peace does not mean you ignore a warning, refuse a necessary conversation, or neglect a wise boundary. A peaceful parent can still be watchful. A peaceful parent can still act promptly. But peace means the burden has changed hands. You remain responsible for your obedience. You are no longer responsible for controlling every outcome. That is the first victory of faith. The child may not change that minute. The telephone may not ring that minute. The outward answer may unfold gradually, but something can change in you immediately. The heart becomes settled, the imagination becomes quiet, and you become free to respond with wisdom instead of reacting from terror. So say this quietly: I will pray what belongs in prayer. I will say what agrees with faith. I will do what love and wisdom require, and I will not mix those three things with panic. That is our rule. Pray in faith, speak in love, act in wisdom. But before we can practice those three lanes, we must uncover something. Fear rarely introduces itself as fear. It prefers respectable names. It calls itself responsibility. It calls itself discernment. It calls itself vigilance. And unless we expose those disguises, we may keep feeding fear while congratulating ourselves for being caring parents. Now, fear is clever about this. It does not always walk in wearing a sign that says, "I am fear." No, it puts on respectable clothes. Constant checking calls itself responsibility. Imagining catastrophe calls itself discernment. Losing sleep calls itself love. Repeated interrogation calls itself protection. And because the label sounds honorable, the parent never challenges what is happening underneath it. Don't misunderstand me. There is such a thing as responsible attention. If your child needs help, give help. If something is wrong, face it. If danger is present, act promptly. Faith is not blindness, and peace is not carelessness. But ask yourself some plain questions. When I receive new information, does it lead me to one clear, proportionate response, or does it begin another round of terrible pictures? After I have taken the wise step available to me, can I rest? Does my monitoring produce useful clarity, or does it merely demand more monitoring? You see, a genuine inward warning will ordinarily move you towards something definite. Pray about this. Ask that question. Make that call. Set that boundary. Seek sound counsel. A generalized dread does something altogether different. It gives no clear direction and never considers its work complete. You can check the door twice, call 3 times, send 4 messages, and fear will say, well, perhaps 5 will finally make you safe. It won't. Fear is never satisfied. Consider a composite example. One mother said, in effect, I called it vigilance, but I was feeding pictures of tragedy. Every delayed reply became proof that something terrible had happened. Then when my child finally answered, I was relieved for 10 minutes and started worrying about the next time. Her first correction was not another phone call. It was honesty. This is fear. I will not call it discernment merely because it feels urgent. That admission did not make her a bad mother. It made her available to become a steadier one. She could examine the facts, take any necessary action, and refuse the extra labor of mentally living through disasters that had not occurred. Now say this plainly: I will not condemn myself for recognizing fear. I will name it, refuse it, and return to love and wisdom. Have you said it? Good. Recognition is not failure. Recognition is the doorway to correction. Once fear loses its respectable disguise, you can stop serving it. And then parental responsibility becomes much clearer. Instead of one anxious knot in which prayer, speech, supervision, control, and imagination are all tangled together, we can sort our responsibility into 3 distinct lanes: what to pray, what to say, and what to do. Now picture a roadway with 3 clearly marked lanes. Every lane is moving toward the same destination, the good of your child, but each lane has its own purpose. If you keep swerving from one lane to another, you will not travel faster. You will create confusion, wear yourself out, and probably frighten everybody riding with you. The first lane is what to pray. In this lane, you bring the child and the definite need before God. You anchor your request in His character and promises. You ask for wisdom, guidance, protection, right influence, and divine help. Then you entrust the matter to Him with thanksgiving. The second lane is what to say. Here you speak truth without giving fear a microphone in your home. You address behavior honestly, but you do not turn a mistake into an identity. You bless the child's capacity to learn, grow, choose wisely, and respond to God. Your words agree with faith and walk in love. The third lane is what to do. This includes supervision, conversation, boundaries, consequences, practical assistance, and protection appropriate to the child's age and the facts of the situation. Faith does not excuse a parent from duty. Faith steadies the parent to perform that duty without panic. Now, for instance, you cannot substitute prayer for a conversation you already know you must have. And you cannot call controlling speech intercession merely because you put religious language around it. Neither can you rush from action to action, hoping enough activity will give you the certainty that belongs only to God. The rules applying to prayer are not identical to the rules applying to action. In prayer, you release the burden. In action, you accept your assignment. In speech, you keep your mouth aligned with truth and love. And hear this carefully. Faith does not give you control over another person's will. A parent's prayer matters greatly, but prayer does not turn a child into a puppet. Your responsibility is to pray faithfully, speak faithfully, and act faithfully. You are not required to become sovereign over every decision and every outcome. Isn't that a relief? You can be a responsible parent without trying to be God. Say this aloud with me: I will pray in faith. I will speak in love. I will act in wisdom. Again, I will pray in faith. I will speak in love. I will act in wisdom. Keep that before you, because we are going to test every anxious impulse by those 3 lanes. And we begin with prayer, showing how the same concern sounds entirely different when the prayer is formed by God's promise instead of fear's picture. Now let us place 2 prayers beside each other. The first says, Lord, what if my child makes the wrong decision? What if the wrong person influences them? What if this happens and then that happens and then everything falls apart? The parent may speak for 20 minutes, but most of those 20 minutes are spent explaining fear's predictions. The second prayer says, Father, you know my child and you know this present need. I ask for wisdom, protection, right guidance, and the working of your Spirit in this situation. Show me what belongs to my responsibility. I receive your help, and I thank you that you care for us. Both prayers mention the child, but only one is anchored. One magnifies what might happen, the other magnifies the faithfulness of God. You see, fear can be very vivid. It supplies scenery, dialogue, consequences, and 3 unhappy endings before breakfast. But detail is not authority. A picture is not a promise. And the fact that an imagined outcome feels real does not mean it came from God. So begin with relationship. You are not standing outside trying to persuade a reluctant stranger to notice your family. You come as God's child. You come believing that He hears, that He cares, and that wisdom is available when you ask. Then find a promise that truly addresses the concern. If the need is wisdom, feed your heart on God's willingness to give wisdom. If it is peace, attend to His promise to guard the heart and mind. If it is guidance, meditate on His faithful leading. Do not grab a sentence merely to make your prayer sound forceful. Let the truth become real to you first. Here is a simple pattern. Name the child. Name the present need without decorating it with disaster. Ask specifically for the wisdom, help, protection, or guidance required. Believe that God hears you. Thank Him. Then surrender the method and timing of the outward result. And don't misunderstand authority. You are not commanding your child's personality. You are not overriding another person's will. Your authority is exercised by refusing fear, agreeing with God, resisting anxious imagination, and remaining faithful in intercession. Now think about your most recent prayer concerning your child. Did it leave you more conscious of God's faithfulness, or did it merely give you a longer description of the danger? Let us correct it now. Say, Father, I bring you the actual need, not fear's entire story. I receive your wisdom and help. I thank you for hearing me, and I trust you with what I cannot control. That is a definite prayer. It is not vague alarm repeated in religious language. It asks, receives, thanks, and entrusts. But now we come to the question every parent faces: what happens after that prayer when you open your eyes and nothing outward appears to have changed? That is where many people become discouraged. They pray, open their eyes, look at the child, look at the circumstances, and say, well, nothing happened. But wait a minute. What are you calling nothing? The outward situation may not have changed yet, but something can happen immediately within you. Peace can rise. Confidence can replace confusion. A decision can become settled. Wisdom can begin to form. The burden can lift. Those are not imaginary results. They are the inward work of faith, preparing you to meet the outward situation differently. You see, there is a distinction between receiving and having. Receiving is the response of the heart when you pray. God heard me. I take hold of His help by faith. Having is the visible experience that may appear later. If you refuse to believe until everything changes outwardly, you are not receiving. You are waiting for sight to do faith's work. Think about a farmer. He puts seed into the ground and covers it. The next morning, he does not rush outside with a shovel, dig it up, inspect it, and say, I just wanted to make sure something was happening. If he did that every morning, he would not prove his concern. He would disturb what he planted. Now, he does not abandon the field. He waters, he watches. He removes what would hinder growth. He performs the work that belongs to him. But he does not demand that the seed become a full harvest before breakfast. That is how faith and parenting work together. You do not pretend the problem is absent. You remain attentive to facts and available for responsible action. But you stop digging up a settled prayer merely because your emotions want fresh proof that God heard you. And some parents carry disappointment from an earlier season. You prayed before, expected something different, and were hurt by the outcome. I will not treat that pain lightly. But disappointment need not become hopelessness. Bring it honestly before God. Return to truth. Ask for wisdom. Let Him correct mistaken expectations without turning prayer into a performance in which you blame yourself for failing to say everything perfectly. There may also be times when you are genuinely led to continue interceding. Do that faithfully. But learn the difference between Spirit-led intercession and anxious repetition. One carries purpose. The other repeats a request because fear insists the first prayer was not heard. So say this aloud: I can be settled before the circumstances are settled. Waiting does not mean I have been abandoned. I receive peace and I remain ready to obey. Peace is not the final measurement of every outward outcome, but it is a meaningful present gift. It guards you from reacting blindly and frees you to act wisely. Receiving begins the release. But now comes the practical test. Will the burden remain released when fear knocks again 5 minutes later? Now there is a persistence that comes from faith, and there is a persistence that comes from unbelief. They may look similar from a distance, but they are moving in opposite directions. The persistence of unbelief keeps begging because it is never sure God heard. The persistence of faith keeps thanking because the matter was placed in God's hands. One says, perhaps if I ask 10 more times, heaven will notice. The other says, Father, I know you heard me, so I will stand in trust and remain ready to obey. Picture a heavy stone sitting on your property. You roll it across the boundary and place it where it belongs. Then 5 minutes later, you roll it back, worry over it, pray again, and push it across once more. Well, moving the same stone all day is not greater devotion. It is exhaustion. What burden are you rolling back and forth? Is it your child's safety, their friendships, their health, their spiritual life, their future choices? Is it an outcome you desperately want but cannot personally produce? Name it plainly. Now establish the boundary of responsibility. You own your obedience. You own truthful communication. You own appropriate protection, wise boundaries, patient love, and any practical step God gives you. But God receives the care. He receives the uncontrollable future. He receives your demand to know everything and guarantee everything. You cannot surrender the outcome while continuing to clutch the demand for certainty. So when fear returns, follow this sequence. First, recognize it. That is the old anxious picture. Second, refuse to develop the story. Do not supply it with another scene and another ending. Third, recall your settled prayer. Fourth, give thanks that God heard you. Fifth, ask, is there any clear action required of me now? If new facts create a genuine duty, act. Make the call. Have the conversation. Seek help. Set the boundary. Faith is not passivity. But if there is no new fact and no clear duty, do not invent activity merely to calm your emotions. Another check may soothe you for 2 minutes and feed the cycle for 2 days. Now open your hands in front of you. Let those open hands represent the child, the future, and the outcome you cannot control. Say aloud, Father, I give you this care. I keep my assignment, but I release your part to you. When fear returns, I will answer with trust, thanksgiving, and obedience. Keep your hands open for a moment. You are not abandoning your child. You are refusing to grip what was never yours to govern. That is how surrender is maintained. Receive new facts, perform real duty, and leave imagined emergencies alone. But there is another way parents retrieve the burden without noticing it. The care may remain released during prayer, yet ordinary words spoken in the kitchen, the car, or a telephone conversation can quietly pick it up again. Now listen to the language fear wants to put in the parent's mouth. You are going to fail. You will end up just like so-and-so. You never learn. You are ruining your future. If I am not standing over you every minute, something terrible will happen. Those words may come from genuine concern, but concern does not make every sentence wise. Words are not magic formulas, but words do reveal what the heart has been feeding upon, and they help create the atmosphere in which a family lives. If every conversation is filled with doom, labels, and hopeless predictions, the home begins to feel like a courtroom where the child's entire identity is always on trial. There is a difference between telling the truth and prophesying your fear. This choice is unsafe, and it must change. Addresses conduct. You always destroy everything takes one moment and turns it into an identity. One provides direction. The other closes the door on growth. So use this three-part discipline. First, tell the truth about the present behavior. Be clear. Do not minimize it, decorate it, or preach around it for 45 minutes. Second, affirm the child's worth and capacity to grow. You can disapprove of a choice without treating the child as though that choice is the final definition of who they are. Third, state the next responsible expectation. What must stop? What needs to happen now? What boundary or consequence will follow? Say it calmly and specifically. Instead of "you are going to ruin your whole life," say "this decision carries serious consequences and we need to address it now." Instead of "you are lazy," say "this responsibility was not completed and here is what must happen next." Instead of "you will never change," say "this pattern must change and I believe you are capable of making a wiser choice." Replace doom with a definite concern. Replace labels with behavior. Replace hopelessness with a path forward. Replace the anxious lecture with a calm boundary. And watch how you speak to relatives and friends after you pray. Seeking wise counsel is proper. Retelling the story to 6 people merely to relive your alarm is something else. Ask yourself, am I seeking help or am I giving fear another audience? Now, if the wrong words slip out, correct them. Say to your child, "What I said was exaggerated and fearful. The concern is real, but that label was wrong. Let me say it truthfully. That is not weakness. That is humility, and it teaches your child how correction works." Say aloud, "I will speak truth without speaking doom. I will address behavior without cursing identity. I will bless growth while maintaining wise boundaries." Good. Faith-filled words can confront a real problem without fastening a fearful future onto a child. But words must be joined to corresponding action, because blessing your child does not remove the responsibility to parent your child. Now we enter the third lane, what to do. Faith is not inactive, but neither is it reckless. Corresponding action means your conduct agrees with what you believe. It means you trust God, use sound judgment, and carry the responsibility that actually belongs to you. Now, for instance, listening carefully is responsible action. Checking a relevant fact is responsible action. Setting an age-appropriate limit, following through on a stated consequence, adjusting a routine, seeking qualified help, or responding to immediate danger, those are all legitimate actions. But every wise action has a nervous imitation. Careful listening becomes interrogation when you keep asking the same question until the child gives you the emotional reassurance you want. Checking a fact becomes compulsion when no new information will ever feel sufficient. A wise boundary becomes fear-driven control when you keep adding rules, not because circumstances require them, but because your anxiety wants another lock on the door. You see, activity alone does not prove obedience. You can be very busy and still be following fear. So before you act, ask 4 questions. What fact requires action? What responsibility is truly mine? What proportionate step would serve my child? Can I take that step without trying to control every possible outcome? Those questions will slow panic down. Fear says do everything immediately. Wisdom says, do the right thing faithfully. And the right thing may not look dramatic. It may be a calm conversation instead of a loud confrontation. It may be waiting until emotions settle. It may be resting tonight and reviewing the facts tomorrow. It may be observing patiently until you have enough information to make a sound decision. Sometimes wisdom speaks. Sometimes wisdom moves. Sometimes wisdom waits. Now, waiting can feel less satisfying than panic. Panic gives you the sensation of control. It says, at least I am doing something. But if the something is unnecessary, intrusive, or confusing, intensity does not make it love. Suppose you have asked the proper question, received an answer, established the needed boundary, and made the appropriate plan. Then anxiety says, change the plan again. Why? Not because the facts changed, not because wisdom changed, only because the feeling returned. Do not let every anxious feeling become a new set of instructions. Say this aloud: I will act on facts, wisdom, and responsibility. I will not treat frantic intensity as proof of love. I will do what serves my child, and I will leave the outcome with God. Prayer entrusts. Speech blesses. Action serves. Fear tries to control all three. That distinction makes a parent firm without becoming frantic, attentive without becoming consumed, and practical without abandoning faith. But now we arrive at the hardest part. What happens when you have prayed, spoken truth, taken the wise action, and uncertainty still remains? What do you do when there is simply nothing more to do? There comes a point when every loving parent meets a truth the natural mind does not enjoy. You cannot guarantee a risk-free life for your child. You cannot prevent every mistake, remove every disappointment, choose every friendship, or control every response, especially as that child matures. Love is powerful, but love is not sovereignty. Now, that does not mean your responsibility is finished in every situation. It means you must learn the difference between unfinished responsibility and unfinished emotion. Sometimes you have prayed, gathered the facts, had the conversation, established the boundary, and taken the wise step. The responsibility is complete for that moment, but your emotions are still shouting, do something else. Call again, check again, warn them again, search for one more piece of information, add another rule. But the fact that your feelings remain unsettled does not prove your duty remains unfinished. Suppose you hand a package to a responsible delivery service. The package is accepted, labeled, and placed on the vehicle. Would you improve the delivery by chasing the vehicle down the road? No. You would only exhaust yourself and possibly interfere with the process. In the same way, there are moments when another action does not add wisdom. It only gives anxiety something to do. So before you take that extra step, pause, become quiet, review the facts you actually know, not the possibilities fear has invented. Recall what you have already prayed. Recall what you have already said and done. Then wait for clear wisdom instead of obeying urgency. Somebody says, but if I stop checking, doesn't that mean I am neglecting my child? Not necessarily. Declining a compulsive action is not neglect. Sometimes restraint is the action most consistent with trust, dignity, and healthy boundaries. Love can remain watchful without becoming intrusive. Love can stay available without forcing a confession. Love can keep the door open without demanding immediate change. Love can say, I am here when you are ready to talk, and then resist the urge to knock on the door every 3 minutes to ask whether they are ready yet. You see, faith does not make you less attentive. It makes your attention more useful. Now place your hand over your heart and ask yourself this question. If peace were leading me instead of fear, would I still take this next step? If the answer is yes, act with courage. If the answer is no, remain still without guilt. You have not abandoned your child. You have completed today's assignment and entrusted what remains beyond your reach. Responsible faith knows when to pray, when to speak, when to act, and when to stop acting. Now let us bring all three lanes together under pressure. Because the principle becomes clearest when the telephone rings, the information is incomplete, and fear wants to take the wheel. Let us take a composite situation, not one particular family, but the kind of pressure many parents recognize. A parent receives an incomplete message suggesting that a child may be in troubling circumstances. There are few facts, but fear does not wait for facts. Within minutes, the mind has written an entire story. The parent calls repeatedly, sends an accusing message, searches for more alarming possibilities, and then begins to pray. But the prayer mostly recites everything that might be wrong. What if this has happened? What if they are with that person? What if this ruins everything? Now stop the scene right there. Sort the lanes. What belongs in prayer? A definite request for protection, wisdom, right influence, and clear direction. What belongs in speech? A calm message expressing concern without accusation. I received this information. I want to know that you are safe. Please contact me. I am ready to listen. What belongs in action? One proportionate check based on the facts presently known. If the information indicates immediate danger, take the appropriate protective step. If it does not, do not treat imagination as evidence. So the parent corrects course. First comes prayer. Father, you know where my child is and what is true. I ask for protection, wisdom, and the right help. Show me my responsibility. I release the fearful story and receive your peace. Then the parent deletes the condemning message and sends the clear one. No labels, no predictions, no 27 exclamation points, just truth, concern, and availability. Then comes the practical step, one call to the appropriate person, one verification, or one decision to wait for more information. Not 5 conflicting actions, one wise action. Now, I am not going to manufacture a perfect ending and tell you every situation resolves immediately. That is not the point. The first observable change happens in the parent. The mind becomes quiet enough to listen. The parent avoids escalating the conflict, remains available to the child, and is still prepared to act if new facts require it. In our composite example, the parent admits, my old intensity felt like love, but it made me harder to approach and less able to hear. Disciplined faith did not make me passive. It made me useful. That is the framework under pressure. Prayer in trust, speech blesses, action serves. Now ask yourself, which lane do I overuse? Which one do I neglect? Do I keep praying when I should speak? Do I keep speaking when I should listen? Do I keep acting because I am afraid to rest? Understanding the pattern is powerful, but no parent practices it perfectly every time. There will be moments when fear returns and you slip into an old reaction. So next we must learn how to recover quickly without surrendering to condemnation. Now you may pray in faith at breakfast and find yourself rehearsing fear before supper. You may release the care, then hear one troubling sentence and pick the whole burden back up again. What do you do then? Condemn yourself. Decide that your faith never worked. No. You correct the lapse and return to your position. Condemnation turns your attention away from God's provision and fixes it on your imperfect performance. It says, you failed again, so you have no right to pray with confidence. But honest correction says, I missed it there. I can receive forgiveness, make the matter right, and get back in line with truth. There are 4 steps in the reset. First, admit the lapse. Call anxious thinking, harmful speech, or compulsive action what it was. Do not excuse it, but do not build a house there either. Second, receive forgiveness. If you confessed it, do not keep punishing yourself as though shame could improve what grace has already cleansed. Third, repair what needs repairing. If you frightened, accused, or controlled your child unfairly, acknowledge it plainly. You can say, my concern was real, but my fearful words were wrong. I should not have spoken to you that way. The boundary remains because the issue still matters, but I will communicate it with respect. Did you hear that? An apology does not require you to abandon a valid boundary. Humility and authority can stand together. Fourth, return to the settled prayer and your assigned responsibility. Thank God that He heard you. Speak truth. Take the wise action. Refuse to restart the whole cycle merely because you stumbled. Some parents look back over years of anxious habits and say, I have done this too long. I have said too much. How can I change it now? You begin with the next faithful decision. You cannot rewrite yesterday, but you can refuse to let yesterday write today. And every correction is training. Each time you catch a fearful thought sooner, restate a sentence more truthfully, or stop one unnecessary action, you are teaching your mind, your mouth, and your conduct to remain aligned with faith. Say this aloud: I will correct myself without condemning myself. I will repair what I have harmed. I will return to faith, love, and wisdom. This is a daily walk, not a flawless one-time performance. The goal is not never needing correction. The goal is returning quickly whenever you recognize that fear has taken the wheel. Now let us gather the whole teaching into one simple daily rule, something you can practice before the next telephone call, difficult conversation, or uncertain night arrives. Here is the daily rule: read, pray, say, act, and rest. First, read a promise that fits the actual need. Not 20 passages chosen in panic, one clear truth concerning peace, wisdom, guidance, protection, love, or God's care for your family. Read it slowly enough for your heart to hear it. Second, pray the concern. Name the child, name the need, ask specifically, receive God's help, and give thanks. Do not drag fear's whole picture gallery into the prayer. Third, say what agrees with truth. Speak to yourself before you speak to your child. Refuse doom, labels, and exaggerated predictions. Then communicate honest concern, love, and the next clear expectation. Fourth, act. Take the step wisdom requires. Listen, make the call, set the boundary, seek appropriate help, follow through. Do your part without trying to do God's part. Fifth, rest. Stop checking when there is nothing new to check. Stop warning when the necessary words have already been spoken. Stop acting when the assignment is complete. You can practice this at the kitchen table, in a quiet room, in the car before a difficult conversation, or in 2 minutes while everybody else is getting ready for the day. Do not make it a performance. The value is not in using a special tone. The value is in bringing your heart, mouth, and conduct into alignment. Prepare a small group of passages you know and understand. Keep them near you. Let them address the needs that commonly stir anxiety before pressure arrives. Then at the end of the day, review without condemning yourself. What did I entrust to God? What did I say? What did I do? What am I still trying to control? And speak a simple blessing in your home. You are loved. Truth matters here. Wisdom is available. Growth is possible. We will face what is real without surrendering to fear. That blessing does not deny a problem or guarantee a particular outcome. It establishes the posture of the household. The goal is not to create a special spiritual moment and then return to panic. The goal is to make trust your ordinary way of parenting. Now choose one child and one present care. Hold them in your mind without imagining disaster. We are going to bring that concern through all 5 movements together: read, pray, say, act, and rest, and make a definite decision before God. Become quiet now. Bring one child to mind, but do not picture disaster. See the child as a person loved by God, still growing, still choosing, still capable of receiving wisdom and help. Name the concern plainly. Do not enlarge it. Do not minimize it. Simply tell God what it is. Now open your hands. Let those open hands represent the outcome you cannot control, the future you cannot see, and the demand to know everything before it happens. You are not releasing your love. You are releasing the burden of sovereignty. Pray this with me. Father, I entrust my child to you. You know the whole situation, and you know what I do not know. I ask for wisdom, protection, right influence, and divine help. Show me what belongs to my responsibility. I receive your peace, and I leave the method, timing, and uncontrollable outcome in your hands. Thank you for hearing me. Keep your hands open and say this aloud. I refuse to pray from panic. I entrust my child to God. I will speak truth without predicting disaster. I will take the action love and wisdom require. I release what I cannot control. Now speak this blessing over your home. My child is loved and valuable. Wisdom is available. Growth is possible. Truth will be spoken here. Love will govern our words. We will face real problems without surrendering to fear. I will honor my child's ability to choose, and I will faithfully provide guidance, boundaries, prayer, and love. Have you released the care? Then leave it released. When the old picture returns, do not continue the scene. When fearful conversation invites you to pick the burden up, keep your words aligned. When anxiety demands needless activity, ask whether wisdom has truly assigned another step. If there is action to take, take it faithfully. If there is truth to speak, speak it lovingly. If there is prayer to offer, pray it confidently. But when the assignment is complete, rest. That is covenant faith in parental life. It is not passive and it is not controlling. It keeps the heart open, the mouth truthful, the hands ready, and the burden in God's care. Pray in faith, speak in love, act in wisdom, rest when your assignment is complete. Let that become your rule tomorrow morning, in the next hard conversation, and in the quiet hours when no one sees the battle but you and God. Your hands are open, your words are aligned, and your next step will be governed by wisdom, not fear.